This is number 3 video. This is my opinion video, not writing. Anyway, you get the hint. Um, so, hopefully I don't hurt anybody's feeling, and nobody hurts mine. Anyway, here we go, people. Well, I started studying the old maps of Mammoth Hot Spring, knowing that capitals are important. I spent some time looking on Capitol Hill for the treasure, thinking it was the old fort that was on top of the hill. There were a lot of clues to support the idea, like the old canyon that was used up on top of Capitol Hill, and Mammoth Hot Springs is the capital of Yellowstone. All I got were dead ends. However, it was clear that Mammoth Springs represented Yellowstone to Forrest Fenn. It is the capital. It contains the history. It is the beginning of Yellowstone. So I figured Forrest Fenn's about being big and living life and he's all about history. And so, he's in love with Yellowstone. This is where it all began. He's umbilically connected to that place. Well, this is the umbilical cord or beginning of Yellowstone. Looking for the treasure in Mammoth Hot Springs, I found what I thought was for sure the blaze. It was a lake that was the perfect shape of a Clovis when viewed from Google Earth. Forrest had stated that he would like to find a Clovis point stuck in the ribs of a mammoth. And in my mind, the Clovis-shaped lake had to be what he was talking about. Additionally, he was always mentioning the first arrowhead he found when he was 8 or 9 years old. Thus, I began to think the treasure was in the tip of the Clovis point or arrowhead. And then I concluded that I had to take a picture and send it to Forrest Fenn. And then, so I took some pictures thinking I was in the wood and related it back to his peace pipe of Sitting Bull, how Fenn used a picture to determine the authenticity of the peace pipe. I spent a couple of trips looking around the Clovis-shaped lakes for the treasure. No luck. In my opinion, this is the fake blaze that Jack talked about in the Finders article, but Jack is the fake finder, so we don't even really need to mention him, because if he's the fake finder, then he's got fake facts. Anyway, but he does tell my story. If we wanted to get into that, we could. But Jack does tell a lot of my story, and he tells a lot of his story, and that's how Forrest Fenn works, by coincidences. Anyway, at this point, I concluded that the boundaries of Yellowstone were the box or the chest, and the wonders in Yellowstone were the treasure. I believe that Yellowstone is the special place, but I still had to find the exact spot. So there you have it, people. The treasure is Yellowstone. The chest is Yellowstone. The treasures in Yellowstone are the treasures. So that's what everybody's looking for. And if you went out into the wilderness and you went anywhere in the Rocky Mountains, you found Forrest Fenn's treasure, but the actual treasure box is Yellowstone, and the treasures in Yellowstone are the treasures. Anyway, that's just it doesn't mean that there wasn't really a treasure box, but it's a play of words. So he can be talking about a treasure box, and it's not the treasure box you think he's talking about at that time. And it's a play of words, and he just shuffles it around, and he calls it, and then he goes to another it, and then it's another treasure box. So just think on that one, and be careful with the way you view his words, because in the book The Thrill of the Chase, if you take out a comma, it changes the whole meaning of a statement. Like Eric Sloan married housekeepers. You know, they kept his houses. Anyway, just it's all about the way he meant it to mean, and that's what you had to figure out. And during my searches, I sent plenty of pictures and information to Forrest Fenn. He responded back to me only 3 times when I lied about finding the treasure. Anyway, other than that, we never communicated, other than I gave him tons and tons of information about my adventures. Anyway, if we go back to the poem, it goes, "From there's no place for the meek." We've covered that. "The end is ever drawing nigh." That means on your left, or, you know, there's a video where Forrest Fenn says all of our ends are drawing nigh, you know, so that could be on the left, a cemetery. There'll be no paddle up your creek. You need a creek, I believe, just heavy loads and water high. And there's a creek that you cross over on the way you're headed south through Mammoth. You come to an intersection that's covered by cows, and he slept under a tree in the thrill of the chase. Anyway, there's a lot of hints there, and you end up on the left at the cemetery, and there is a creek there, and it has no name, so it's your creek, and there's no paddle. You ain't going up that creek. And there's a lot of metaphors in the poem, like I don't know, somebody did one the other day. This poem represents going through life, you know, and at this point in your life, there's no paddle up your creek. Anyway, the end is ever drawing nigh. So heavy loads is Mammoth Hot Springs, and it deposits 2,000 pounds of material a day, and it's a waterfall, so water high. And then that actually gets us to the cemetery. And this is where the magic starts to happen. Magic's definitely a word that helps you get to the end and force use it, because there are more clues given to the end of the thrill of the chase than there are any. I mean, he concentrates all his clues on the end, because once you get there, that's your verification that you found it, is there's tons of clues. But if you never get to the end, you're never going to find it, because none of the clues make any sense until you get to the end. So, you know, I did study it out. I did think about it a lot, and I did a lot of errors. But I'll tell you what, fate and luck and whatever you want to call it helped me get to the end. So we'll go with that. A higher hand. There we go. I believe in intelligent design. Anyway, God. There we go. Forrest Fenn makes a statement. People will be surprised when they find out where it is. Brought me to the cemetery. It then took me a while to figure out the numbering system in the cemetery. This required that I consider quite a few things. The numbers that I thought applied to the solve were the wrong ones at first. During this process, I sent Forrest Fenn pictures of what I was doing in the cemetery. I also begged Forrest Fenn to clarify a clue he gave to the community, that the treasure was not in a graveyard. Up to this point, I felt that it was in the cemetery because the poem led me to the cemetery. As I said, I wanted Forrest Fenn to clarify if a graveyard and a cemetery were the same thing. I begged him to give me clarification because I did not want to be in the cemetery. I sent Forrest pictures of every hole I dug. Yes, I have now come forward. I dug holes. I believe I sent him 3 emails trying to get clarification. I didn't want to do what I did in the cemetery, digging holes in the pursuit of a treasure, but I became obsessed with finding it. Yes, I let my obsession get the best of me. Greed, I don't know, I was just driven. At one time I told Forrest Fenn he could take his treasure and do something with it. All I wanted to do was solve the dang poem. But I didn't know any other way to solve it, and I understood it wrongly because I no longer believe that it was ever buried in the cemetery. I don't believe one of the things that Forrest Fenn should have said, and he would have stopped a lot of problems, is you don't have to break the law in order to find the treasure. And there was a lot of people that were, that dug in cemeteries, that rappelled down into the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, that drove trucks into places they weren't and had to have them airlifted out. There was people that died, all kinds of things. Anyway, I'm not, trying to point any fingers, but I would have never been in there if it wasn't for the poem leading me with my imagination. So my imagination got me. Like I said, he should have gave that one clue. You don't have to break the law in order to find my treasure, and he would have solved a lot of problems. So we'll go from there. If you're judging me, then you don't need to listen any farther. But, it might be interesting to find out, because people will be surprised when they find out where it is. And Forrest Fenn's first rule is it doesn't matter who you are. It matters who people think you are. And so these terms got me to the cemetery. This video Jack Stoof gave, it's up on his website, and I'm just going to play you a little clip of Forrest Fenn, and you can make your own judgment. Okay, here we go.
What do you say to people who think you're crazy or a public nuisance, or that you're like getting people to dig up outhouses or graves or national parks or any of that kind of stuff?
I pretty much agree with them. I mean, how can you be a maverick? I hope somewhere in my distant past there was a parrot, because I have that instinct in me. I think. I mean, I never wanted to break the law, but I wanted to bend some of them a little bit. How do you know where the edge is if you don't go out there and look? And I'm not the type of person that you'll find walking down the center line. It's just not part of me.
Do you feel like you want to inspire other people to have those feelings, or to do things that are a little different than they would normally do?
I don't know that I can inspire anybody to. I mean, a personality is a personality. If you don't have it in you, then you can just laugh and go play canasta. That's the way a lot of people are. But I have inspired some people because they've told me that by emails. I would never have gone to Yellowstone or to Yosemite or to Bandelier if you had not lured me out there with this treasure story.
Can you just give us the sort of condensed version of?
So let's make this clear. Forrest Fenn did not break the law. I did, but he helped me get where I was doing it. Anyway, all the blame comes on me, but you people that think that it couldn't be there might need to think again. There you have it for this video. Keep smiling.